You said what now? Bon the Fairy King. Yo, those are words I never thought I would hear in my life. Bon the Fairy King. I mean, it has a nice little ring to it, I'm not gonna lie, but yo, you telling me my Bon, our Bon the homie is Bon the Fairy King now? I mean, I understand where they're coming from. I feel bad for King a little bit. I don't really care personally, because that is how things get resolved. I knew that he couldn't just come back after being ignorant to everything that's taking place with his people, with the forest, and Bon knowing why. I just saw these developments coming throughout this chapter, especially with little hints at the beginning, but Bon the Fairy King, really? Yo, Bon the Sin of Greed? Bon the Thief is now Bon the Fairy King? Yo, I mean, has a nice little ring to it, I'm not gonna lie. This chapter, nice progression, things are just happening exactly like I thought they would. Interested to see where it goes and what Bon's whole purpose with even returning to the Fairy King forest was in the first place. But let's get into it, some little intricacies I want to discuss. First of all, I kind of saw this kind of shunned reaction of King coming. The King is starting to feel real sad right now. The King sob story is gonna get bigger. The feels will kind of probably bubble up for King right now, because not only, alright, his dog, first of all, Oslo, his loyal, faithful black hound. He's like, he asked him, he's like, yo, what do you think Bon meant by that? And not, whenever you see Oslo, yo, Oslo's always mad loyal, showing mad affection to King. Whereas he's vicious as fuck like any of the normal black hound to anybody else. This time he looks mad, like while he's not vicious or anything, he was completely indifferent towards King. It's not like he was like making a sentiment like, I don't really know. That's not how I took it. I took it more so like, instead of him being like turning away, like no comment, like, oh, just leave me alone, like I don't, like why are you talking to me right now? And like King is just like, wait, what? Like, huh? And I'm just like, what could that, why is that? Why is Oslo so indifferent to King right now? Does it have any relation to, you know, the fairies? And the fortune and their sentiments towards him and everything like that? Wouldn't he have been like that before then? I don't know. I wonder what that's an indication of. If something's changed, whether it has something to do with these sinister forces working in the background, i.e. Merlin, like I always talk about. Who knows? I mean, it might just be a small thing. It might be nothing. But I just wanted to point that out, because that was what was starting to keep me into King just being completely shut. Second, Bon has no interest for him coming along with him. He's just like, get the fuck back. Don't you think Daine is going to be worried if you come along to the forest with me and all of this stuff? And he's just like, you know, Daine doesn't really care about me. She was just doing that she just went to the festival with me to congratulate me from saving her, basically, to, you know, show her thanks. And I thought about it, and I'm like, that could be one interpretation of it, King. I think you're hating on yourself a little too much. It also could be that Daine is starting to catch a little bit of feels for you, and you should have more confidence in yourself, bro. You should have more confidence in yourself, because honestly, the way that Daine did that, unless it's some sort of manipulation, and like I said, the forces and powers that be at work behind this whole thing, which I hate having to repeat myself every chapter of you. I don't like bringing up the Merlin conspiracy theories until there's more evidence to prove her guilty. I don't want to pin everything on her, so I'm going to leave that out. But like I was saying before, unless Daine is, you know, being manipulated somehow, I think that it was a little bit more than just her trying to show thanks for you. I think she might have just caught a little bit of feelings with you. You don't see her running off to find Captain. The first thing she would have done if she didn't have any sort of feelings with you, which is why I suspect some sort of foul play, but if it's legit, then you're good, bro, because the first thing she would have done upon becoming smaller, like she was talking about in the early chapters, would have been to go find Meliodas. She's like, I always wish I could be his size. Like, I always saw myself as that way, but I always wanted to be his size and tend to him and be in the same room as him and all this shit that she can never do. So you would think if she still had those, if she wasn't catching any feels for King, she would have never gone to the festival with him in the first place. So you have a little bit more confidence in yourself. But the King pity party is just starting to pile on right now. Then I'll break away from that for a second. I like this little party that we have here for this little side venture to the Fairy King's Forest for Bon's little focus right now, because even Bon says himself, he's like, this is a weird little party I have with me. It's King, Bon, and then JERICHO pops out of nowhere, and I was just like dying laughing. I was like, here we go. And JERICHO, of course, completely smitten with Bon at this point, just can't even deny the feels, really. Like, she's just so blatant about it. The embarrassed look at her face, telling him to take responsibility, and I was like, I just stripped her once, it's no big deal. And he's like, what? Are you serious? Personally, I don't know if JERICHO has any chance. I don't think JERICHO has a chance, because if what Bon's mission is to do, if Bon is still dead set on Elaine right now, like, there's only one way in the sense of the entirety of Taizai that JERICHO can have a chance with Bond, and that's for him to give up on Elaine. And I don't see that happening anytime soon. I feel like this whole mission to Fairy King's Forest is all for Elaine. So she doesn't really have much of a chance right now, and her whole feels towards him are just gonna be jilted. It's gonna be potentially for purposes of comic relief, like we saw in this chapter. It was really well done. I like the fact that JERICHO's coming along, just add some diversity to everything, and she's there also to ask some questions that are very key. Like, for one thing, she was like, I don't know anything about fairies, and King's like, well, the forest was burned down before you were born, so you know you wouldn't really know about us like that. And she's like, but I thought fairies had wings. Why don't you have wings if you're the Fairy King? And I'm sitting there, I'm like, wait a second. Why doesn't King have wings? Like, honestly, all Helbram had wings. Even, I believe Elaine had wings. I'm not exactly sure because I can't get a clear picture of Elaine in my head with wings at this moment. But I'm gonna go look after this. I'll, you know, amend it in a little note or something. But regardless of that, it seems to me that King is the only one without wings. If Elaine didn't have wings, then that leads credence for me to be like, yo, it's like the royal line of fairies don't have wings or some shit. I don't know. But King seems to be the only one without wings. My theory as to that was whether that makes him somewhat special. Who knows? Maybe, you know, how the humans were hunting, you know, the guy that Helbram's body took over his body and everything like that. Maybe the humans that were hunting wings eventually took King's place. We saw from the very beginning that we were introduced to King that King never had wings. So I doubt that's the case, and I'm just wondering, why doesn't he have wings? What's the reason behind that? So that makes me curious. Now, I feel bad for King just a little bit, but at the same time, I understand where they're coming from. They're a bit like, all the fairies just don't recognize him anymore. They're like, fuck you. They're running over like, the Fairy King, you're back. And King is like, oh, guys, it's you. I forget their names. Who cares? They're just random fairies to me right now. But they're just like, not you. Fuck you. Yo, Harley, it's Harlequin. Harley, fuck Harley, man. Yo, you left us. It's all because of you that the forest burned down and Elaine is dead. If it weren't for this glorious savior over here, all hail the new Fairy King Bond, who planted the seed, and Bond's like, all I did was plant the seed. Don't worry. I'm like, yo, Bond, you kind of loving this deep down, aren't you? But I just like this chapter. The dynamic has been set up since the end of last chapter for Bond to have more precedence in this engagement with the Fairy King's Forest than King. And it's really setting up for next chapter, especially with the title of next chapter being A Nobody. Really setting up for King to be in like a state of disarray, to be, you know, lost, pitying himself, wondering what he can do to redeem himself in all kinds of different ways. So I'm interested to see how that develops. But right now, my main question is still, and was since last chapter, what is Bond's purpose in returning to the Fairy King's Forest? You saw he easily was able to find it. They find it amongst this foggy mist. However, he just knows exactly where he's going. All the fairies there know him, associate with him, calling him the King of Fairies now, so he really has a lot of, you know, clout and like depth into the Fairy King's Forest right now, and like what he can possibly be doing there. Is he still on the Goddess Altar's mission? I don't know, because that required, they asked him to kill Meliodas. It doesn't seem like he's trying to do that right now, unless this is related to that. What is he there for? The only thing that I know about Bond that he really wants is Elaine, so his purpose has to be somewhat related to Elaine, no matter what. Is he there just to, you know, pay homage to the place that she died before he sets out reconfirm his resolve to, you know, fight Meliodas or whatever? Is there a new method that he has planned there to be able to do some shit? Is he there for King and he's just kind of joking around? Because, like, King references himself. Bond is a fucking troll. Bond is, that's why I love him, honestly. He's a troll, he lies through his teeth, and he's hilarious. And he could just be pretending like, oh, I don't want you coming along, King, I don't want you coming along, to just be like, oh, actually, this was all for you at the end of the day, in some sense or form. I have my own shit to take care of, but, you know, who knows? Who knows? All I know is all we can do is wait and see, find out what his purpose in the Fairy King Forest. But the Fairy King Banyo, that has a nice ring to it. Overall, good chapter, like the progression, like the fact that JERICHO came along. What does it mean? Two things. What does it mean that King doesn't have wings? That Oslo's kind of indifferent towards him right now? And what is Bond's purpose in the Fairy King Forest right now? Those are the things I wanted to hear. So, let me know your thoughts. Pretty decent chapter, great progression. I'm out. Peace.